The first time Jason said he was going on a work trip. Kiana barely blinked. Logistics was a messy business. Warehouse delays. Overnight coordination. Inspections that lasted longer than anyone predicted. Living on Kauai made these things trickier, especially when most of the island's infrastructure sat tucked between stretches of jungle and unforgiving cliffs. But the fourth time he left, still carrying the same overnight bag, still refusing to share the name of the hotel, something shifted. Kiana sat on the lanai that morning, sipping black coffee from her chipped ceramic mug. The sky was overcast, the kind of gray that rarely lingered on the island. Jason kissed her forehead and said, 3 days, Southside again, you know how it is. She nodded, murmured something about safe travels. But her stomach tightened as he walked out the door. He didn't say, I love you. Kiana watched the hibiscus sway in the wind, their petals shivering slightly, and thought about how silence had grown between him, not loud, not cruel, just persistent, a quiet fog. They had been married for 10 years, together since their early 20s. She had been drawn to Jason's charm, his ambition. He made her laugh. Once, he used to dance barefoot in the kitchen while burning scrambled eggs. Now, he barely ate at home. She worked from home as a bookkeeper, handling accounts for a local produce distributor. Her days were filled with spreadsheets, invoices, and polite emails. Simple, clean, structured. But lately, her husband's schedule had become anything but. She told herself not to overthink it. People change. Work gets hard. Marriages cool. Still, the absence of detail felt intentional. Jason used to tell her everything. What kind of room he stayed in. What snacks the hotel offered. How the front desk clerk mispronounced his last name. Now, nothing. She brought it up once, casually, while folding laundry. You're always down south these days, she said. Jason didn't look up from his phone. That's where the client is. They're expanding operations near Poipu. Kiana folded one of his shirts. Which hotel this time? He glanced up, blinked, then smiled. Does it matter? She let it drop. But her gut didn't. The call came 2 days later. Her friend Lehua, a freelance photographer, had just wrapped a shoot near the Poipu beach resort. I didn't want to assume, Lehua said over the phone. But I thought you should know. I saw Jason. Kiana's heart slowed. Lehua continued. Careful, he was with a woman. Blonde, not local. They looked close. Kiana thanked her, hung up, and sat very still. She wasn't angry, not immediately, just disoriented. She opened her laptop and stared at the spreadsheet she had been working on. Numbers blurred, columns twisted. Her hands trembled slightly over the keys. Blonde, not local. She opened her photo archive, searched for a folder she hadn't clicked in years, before marriage. There she was, Melissa, Jason's ex, mainland-born, wild, unpredictable, with a laugh that Kiana had once heard echoing through Jason's stories like a warning siren. The woman who had left him a week before their planned engagement. The one who had found herself in San Francisco after 3 tequila-fueled years with Jason. Kiana closed the laptop. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house felt amplified. The ceiling fan's hum turned into white noise she couldn't silence. She replayed every small moment from the past 6 months, his late returns, sudden work trips, the way he double-locked his phone, the silence after sex. She wanted proof, not because she didn't trust her friend, but because if she was going to confront Jason, she needed evidence stronger than a whisper. The next morning, she met with a private investigator named Nainoa at a coffee shop in Kauai. He was ex-military, mid-40s, with tired eyes and a clean notepad. She handed him a photo of Jason and a list of dates. I want to know where he stays, she said, who he's with, and when. Nainoa nodded. I'll give you facts, not assumptions. Good, she said, I'm done guessing. The next few days dragged. She kept up appearances, answered emails, did laundry, smiled at neighbors. But inside, she was an ocean churning beneath still waters. On the 5th day, Nainoa called. Got something, he said. You want it in person? She met him at the same coffee shop. He slid a manila envelope across the table. Inside were 10 photographs. Jason, holding hands with Melissa on a beach path. Jason, kissing her cheek while waiting for valet service. Jason, checking into Poipu Beach Resort under a different last name. And finally, Jason and Melissa on a private villa balcony, toasting glasses at sunset. Kiana didn't cry. She stared at the pictures in silence. Her fingers steady. Nainoa said quietly, "I'm sorry." Kiana shook her head. "Don't be. You gave me what I needed." She went home, made tea, and sat in the kitchen watching steam rise from her mug. She pulled out a folder and began gathering documents: marriage license, joint bank statements, tax returns. She wasn't going to scream. She wasn't going to throw things. She was going to burn it down, but legally. That night, Jason returned. He smelled of cologne she didn't recognize. He kissed her forehead like he always did. She pretended to be half asleep. He didn't notice her eyes open in the dark hours later, staring at the ceiling. She didn't ask how his trip was, because she already knew. Each photo became its own scar. Kiana kept the envelope from Nainoa sealed in a drawer for days. But the images were already etched into her mind. Jason and Melissa walking barefoot down the beach path at golden hour. Her fingers in his hair. His hand pressed low on her back. A birthday cake being brought out on a patio with tiki torches glowing in the background. Melissa laughing. Jason singing. He had never sung to Kiana. Not even once. She printed copies of the photos and slipped them into plastic sleeves, one by one, then placed them into a binder she labeled Truth. There was no confrontation, no slamming doors or screaming matches. Instead, she began pulling pieces of herself out of the life they had built together. Quietly, intentionally, she started sleeping in the guest room, claiming it was for her posture. She adjusted her work hours to be home less when he was. She moved her grandmother's heirloom jewelry from the dresser to a locked box at the bank. She called her accountant. At night, she stopped brushing her teeth in their shared bathroom. She stopped using the soap Jason liked. She washed her own clothes separately. Jason didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and chose not to ask. She kept a journal hidden inside a cookbook no one had touched in years. Each night she wrote entries that started the same way. "Dear me, you already know, but here it is again." In one entry she wrote, "It's not the betrayal that hurts. It's how he makes it look easy." Another said, "I don't miss his love. I miss mine." The nights grew longer. Rain came in heavier waves, smearing the windows like tears she refused to shed. Kiana watched the world pass by her porch with blank eyes. Her heart didn't beat faster when Jason came home. It didn't beat slower when he left again. She was numb, but not broken. She withdrew half their savings. Quietly, moved it to a new account under her maiden name. When the bank teller asked if she was sure, she smiled. Very. Jason came home one evening talking about network delays and site assessments. Kiana nodded, served him reheated curry, and made sure to ask nothing. He didn't notice the look in her eyes was different. She watched him scroll through his phone while he ate. The light from the screen made him look younger. Almost like the man she had fallen in love with. Almost. That night she walked into the backyard barefoot, let the cold grass sting her feet, and looked up at the stars. She whispered, "You don't have to burn things to leave. But sometimes they burn anyway." Then came the photos from the spa. Nainoa sent him unprompted. "Didn't know if you still wanted updates." He wrote. Kiana clicked open the message and stared. Jason and Melissa in white robes, sipping green juice, smiling. Melissa reaching out to touch his face. Jason laughing, her hand resting on his chest. They looked like honeymooners. Kiana closed the laptop. She didn't get angry. She went to the bedroom, pulled her suitcase from the top shelf, and packed one bag. Only clothes she had bought before she married him. Only books she had loved before she knew his name. Then she unpacked it. It wasn't time yet. She needed a clean exit. Not just for her dignity, for her safety. That week, She visited a divorce attorney in Hanalei. The office smelled like lemon and old paper. The lawyer, a woman named Ilana, listened silently as Kiana spoke for 30 uninterrupted minutes. When she finished, Ilana simply asked, "Do you have evidence?" Kiana handed her the binder labeled Truth. Ilana flipped through a few pages and nodded. "You're prepared." "I had to be." "Are you scared?" "Not yet." She left the office with a copy of the draft papers and a plan. File it while Jason's away. Have him served through the firm. Remove herself before he has a chance to twist the story. She told no one, not even Lehua. One night, a week before the filing, Jason came home early. She was in the kitchen. He walked in without knocking, a habit she once found endearing. Now it felt invasive. He smelled like hotel shampoo. "Dinner smells great," he said. She hadn't cooked. He kissed her cheek. She didn't flinch, just smiled. "You're home early." He shrugged. "Missed you." The lie floated in the air, sour and lazy. That night, Kiana lay awake and stared at the ceiling fan turning slowly above them. Jason snored beside her, blissfully unaware. She turned to her side and whispered, "I missed me too." When he left again, she filed the paperwork and began to wait for the fire. The morning she filed the papers, the ocean was unusually calm. Kiana stood on the courthouse steps with a manila envelope clutched to her chest, listening to the silence inside her more than anything outside. The clerk who took her documents smiled with the mechanical detachment of someone who processed broken vows for a living. "It'll be served this afternoon," the woman said, stamping the top sheet. Kiana nodded, barely hearing. Jason was still down in Poipu, supposedly finishing another round of logistics planning. Melissa would be with him. She knew. She pictured them sharing overpriced resort coffee, his phone face down between them like an offering. She walked out of the courthouse into sunlight that felt foreign. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She ignored it at first, assuming it was the lawyer confirming the delivery process. But it kept buzzing. She answered on the fourth ring. It was her neighbor, Ruth. "Kiana, your house. It's on fire." The words didn't land right away. "What?" "I called 911. It's bad. The back of the house. It's in flames. The fire trucks are here now." Kiana dropped her keys. "Is anyone inside?" I don't know. I just saw the smoke and ran over." The garage was open. I yelled, but no one answered. Kiana didn't remember the drive. She must have broken every speed law on the island. When she turned onto her street, all she could see was smoke rising in heavy gray ribbons. Her heart pounded in her ears. The back of the house, Jason's workspace, was fully engulfed. Firemen surrounded the perimeter, barking commands. Neighbors stood clustered on lawns, phones in hand, faces pale. She pushed through the caution tape, calling his name. A firefighter stopped her. "Mom, you need to stay back. It's not safe." "That's my house," she shouted. He nodded grimly. "We're doing everything we can. But there's someone inside." She froze. "Jason?" We pulled a woman out. She wasn't responsive. Kiana's knees buckled. She gripped the hydrant for balance. "Blonde," the firefighter added. "Mid-30s. Melissa." Time fractured. The rest of the day unfolded like someone else's life. An ambulance, a white sheet, a news crew, caution tape flapping in the breeze like forgotten prayers. Jason arrived just before dusk. Not with Melissa, alone. His car screeched to a halt. He jumped out and ran toward the front, only to be intercepted by police. "Sir, you need to stop. This is an active investigation." Jason looked wild, hair unkempt, face red, sweat already soaking through his collar. "What happened? Where is she?" "Sir, we need to speak with you downtown." Kiana watched from across the street. He didn't even see her. An officer approached her. "We'll need you to come in too." "For a statement." She nodded, her voice somewhere deep underwater. The interviews were long, methodical. Her hands shook as she recounted the timeline. "When did you last see your husband?" "This morning. He was at Poipu." "Was anyone supposed to be in the house?" "No, no one." They took her phone, asked about security cameras. One officer returned holding a thumb drive. "You have outdoor cams?" "Yes." They nodded, then left the room. 3 hours later, they returned. Ms. Kiana, the lead detective, said, "Your husband was seen entering the property 3 hours before the fire began." She blinked. "He wasn't supposed to be here. Footage shows him parking around the block, entering through the back gate." She said nothing. He was alone. 20 minutes later, another camera caught him unlocking the side door. "We believe he started the fire in his workshop." "Why?" she whispered. The detective looked grim. "We think he wanted to destroy evidence. Or make a statement." "What about her? We're not sure if she was meant to be there. Or if she walked in at the wrong time." Kiana closed her eyes. Jason was arrested that night. The island erupted in gossip. The fire, the woman, the marriage that burned down in public view. Melissa's death was ruled as homicide by smoke inhalation. Jason was charged with first-degree arson and murder. The news outlets used words like crime of passion. But Kiana knew better. This wasn't passion. It was cowardice, wrapped in gasoline. At the arraignment, Jason refused to look at her. He stood in an orange jumpsuit, jaw tight, eyes flat. She sat in the back of the courtroom, unmoving. The prosecutor read the charges. Jason's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, but the judge wasn't moved. Bail was denied. Kiana drove home, or what was left of it. The house was blackened. The roof caved in. Her bedroom had collapsed. The wedding photo that once hung above the dresser was gone. Neighbors left flowers. She didn't light a single candle. For the first time in weeks, she slept. But when she woke, the silence was louder than ever. The courtroom was cold, not in temperature, but in spirit. Months had passed since the fire. The trial began in a flurry of media noise but settled into a slow, grim rhythm. Every day Kiana showed up, sat quietly in the same spot behind the prosecution, and listened. She didn't cry when the autopsy report was read aloud, didn't flinch when photos of the charred hallway were shown on the projector, didn't blink when the jury watched the security footage, Jason slipping through the back gate like a ghost with matches. The prosecution built a meticulous case: premeditation, access, motive. The defense argued for emotional instability, citing stress, mental breakdown, a moment of poor judgment. But the footage and Melissa's death spoke louder than any excuse. Kiana was called to testify. She told the truth, calm, clear, without dramatics. She didn't embellish. She didn't need to. When asked how she felt the day she filed for divorce, she answered, "Like I was finally breathing again." The room held its breath. Jason never took the stand until the sentencing phase. He stood there, thinner now, paler. The charm that once carried him like a breeze was gone. His voice cracked when he spoke. "She was a mistake," he said, speaking of Melissa, "but she was all I had left." Then he looked at Kiana. His voice dropped. "You were the only person who ever saw me clearly. And I destroyed that." Kiana didn't look up. The judge read the verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Life without parole. The courtroom exhaled. Jason didn't cry. He nodded. Kiana left without looking back. She didn't speak to the reporters outside. Didn't write a statement. Didn't go home. Instead, she booked a one-way flight off the island. In her final blog post, months later, from a city where no one knew her name, she wrote, "I don't hate anyone, but I will never return to a place that tried to burn me alive. Even if I once called it home." The blog ended there. No one knew what happened to her after that. Friends said she changed her number, closed all accounts. Some say they saw her walking barefoot along a beach in New Zealand. Others think she took a new name, started over, quietly, but the house remained, burned, empty, a warning more than a memory. Tourists passed by it on the way to the beach and asked what happened. Locals said, "A man mistook fire for love." And in the silence that followed, you could still hear it. The crackle of wood, the whisper of betrayal, the cold of a place that once held warmth. Louder than screams, quieter than forgiveness. Kiana never returned to Kauai. And Kauai never quite forgot her. But just across the sea, On the Big Island, where volcanoes breathe like sleeping beasts, another betrayal was unfolding. Noah thought his girlfriend would never leave his side, especially during an evacuation. But when the sky turned red and the ash began to fall, she ran, and didn't take him with her. Next, witness how survival can't always save you, in the story of Noah from Hilo.